It's a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
helped you move ahead? Because it's hard to do that in such a situation. I mean, I can't even imagine. But what was it for you that helped move you forward in life?
Well, what it was for me was uh, I had accidentally, it was a happy accident. I had ended up in Spencer, Indiana,
Hmm. Oh, okay.
and they were having their Pride celebration.
Yeah.
And which I don't know if you've ever been to Spencer Pride, but
No, I have not.
Spencer really is such a beautiful little town. And it's about 30, 40 minutes from Bloomington
Yeah.
and kind of about the same from Terre Haute. But it's such a gorgeous little town, and they have this beautiful like town square.
Mm.
And the community center, which is Spencer Pride, is right there on the square, and they have like a little shop and got a ton of volunteers that were there with them, and they do this G-rated Pride Festival, and the whole town and all the towns around it come out for it. And it
Nice.
and then they've got the historic Tivoli Theater that's right there, and they do the drag shows
Oh,
there.
okay.
And I mean, it is really just neat. I thought, wow, this is really something that, it's a family friendly
Huh?
pride celebration, something that you could bring your kids to and
Right.
not have to worry about anything. And um, it was amazing. And at the time my nephews were little, and I thought, this is someplace where I could like bring my nephews, or my sister would bring my nephews, and stuff like that. And then I started to think about it, and I was like, I want to do this in Greenwood
Well,
because,
exactly.
I
Do you
thought,
know, by the way, how long has Spencer Pride been around? I'm curious if you
oh
know that.
gosh, I wish I knew that.
Okay,
Um,
well, that's okay if you don't.
yeah.
I've certainly heard about it for years and I'm familiar with Spencer, but no, I've never been.
Oh
But
god.
I'm glad that that inspired you. I was going to ask you, how did you think of with maybe some other people? I assume, I don't know
Yeah.
who all you got involved, but you can tell us that that inspired you to start Greenwood Pride. So tell us
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. So yeah, and everybody at Spencer Pride is just good, amazing people. Same with Indie Pride. Everybody that we've worked with Indie Pride, and but yeah, I mean, I was really inspired to do it in Greenwood, even Johnson County. And so I started talking to people, and of course, I had a lot of people to be like, "Oh, well, nobody would come. Everybody goes to Indy," and I'm like, "Yeah, but Indy's kind of a different vibe, and in Indy, you cost money to get in, and some people can't afford that, and so
Right.
I'm thinking, do something a little bit more like a family festival, like for the afternoon, and it's free, and uh, so a lot of people thought it was a great idea. There were some people that didn't. And so I started kind of working on things, and we're going to plan something. And then the pandemic happened. Um,
Oh,
yeah. So, but I mean, the other part of the Greenwood Pride thing is it got me out. It gave me a reason to get out of bed and live again. And I thought
right.
that's something that I knew Craig would be really proud of.
Yeah.
Because I always told him I would like to do something like that in my hometown. And he was like, well, if anybody could pull it off, you could. So I
He
really,
was right.
yeah, well, thank you. But yeah, I really thought, so start planning. And then, of course, the pandemic hit
Yeah.
and kind of flopped. And then when they started to say that we could meet outside and stuff, I started planning again. Had some people in the community reach out and say they wanted to help out too. So we kind of all joined forces. And in 30 days, had our first Greenwood Pride. We planned and had our first Pride like all within a 30-day period.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, it really is. And so we thought we might get a few hundred people, and there ended up being 3,000 people there at our
That's
first Pride.
great.
Yeah,
How did you
so
get the word out? How did you mostly tell people about it?
just basically just Facebook
Okay.
and just Facebook and word of mouth.
Hmm.
Greenwood for having a population of 64,000. I mean, Greenwood really still has a lot of that small town atmosphere. And
Yeah.
so I think when one person knows something, we all know something. Yeah.
Right.
So
What was 2022 the first year then? Or was it
2021,
2021?
yeah,
Oh,
2021
2021.
year. Yeah. And then
Okay.
2024, this will be our fourth year on June the
Oh,
1st.
okay. For some reason I was thinking this would be the third. Boy, time flew. Yeah,
I
so
know.
you were right after I mean the height of the
Oh, yeah.
pandemic.
Right
Oh,
after.
that's amazing. And I think if it hadn't have been for that, it probably would have even have been a bigger turnout the first year.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
possibly. Yeah, because the second year we were flabbergasted because they said we had like, I think they said we had probably like 8 or 9,000 the second year. And then last year it was between 12 and 14,000. So yeah,
so
so
it's
and
just growing.
it is. And the great thing is we get so much, we get very little hate. We do get hate. We don't get a lot of it, thank goodness. But we get a whole lot of love. The
Well, that's
community
good.
here really steps up and helps out with Pride. The small business owners, volunteers, everybody really steps up and helps out. It's stressful, but it's worth it. It's a great
Yeah.
time. And I get messages, I even had people like yell at me in a Shell gas station to say, hey, you know what? I brought my son to Greenwood Pride and I got my son back. He's a different person now because he was finally able to go somewhere and experience this. And, he knows he's going to be okay. And, so it's like we hear a lot of those stories, which is fantastic. It makes it all worth it.
Right. So, John, what would you say over these 3, 4 years, what do you think is the biggest lesson you've learned about doing this kind of event?
Oh gosh. I have I would say the biggest thing is listen to people around you who tell you who've been doing it.
Yeah.
I really don't think that I would have been able to do all that I've done if it hadn't been for people like, Jonathan at Spencer Pride and Shelly Schneider at Indie Pride and Josh Lemieux and Jenny Boyts and
Yeah.
uh gosh, John Angeline at Spencer Pride and
Well, and
gosh,
probably the
so many
people who have
people.
helped you as well, like with Greenwood Pride.
Oh yeah.
Who have been some of the closest people that work with you on Greenwood Pride?
Well, Suzanne Fortenberry is currently our executive director, and
Okay.
she and I met when we were doing the first Pride, and then we bonded. And I always credit her you know, as because people are like, oh, well, John, he started Greenwood. And I'm like, well, Greenwood Pride was really kind of I had an idea and then the community brought it together. So I don't know that
Hmm.
anybody gets credited with starting Greenwood Pride, but
Right.
it's, definitely Greenwood Pride wouldn't be what it is today without Suzanne, because she and I are two very different personalities. And she thinks about things like budgets and porta potties, and I and I'm just thinking about where I'm going to put the stage for the drag show.
Right.
So
Well,
but they're important. They're important. But I've learned so much from her. Um, and then of course, the advice that I've gotten from you know other Pride organizations has been great, and that was one of the reasons why we were so excited to start up. Lots of the Pride organizations, especially with so many new Pride organizers starting up around it. I mean, we've got like probably 10 new Pride celebrations this year in
right.
various counties and towns. And we all Greenwood Pride, Spencer Pride, Indie Pride, and South Bend, HR at South Bend, kind of all pulled together the Indiana Pride Network.
Okay.
And I think Spencer Pride had actually started the Indiana Pride Network as a Facebook group, and
Oh,
people would kind of talk back and forth, but we kind of revived it a little bit, tried to organize it a little bit more so that all these new pride organizations knew where to find us, and we could share resources and data and things like that to make it a little bit easier for people that want to start a pride organization.
Good.
um but yeah, it's fantastic. I think the Indiana Pride Network, we have over, I think we have close to 40 pride organizations just in Indiana that are a part of it.
That's amazing. Well,
Yeah,
John,
we
let
meet.
me ask you this,
Go ahead.
just because we're running short on time, but I want to make sure we get to one other thing for sure. And that is, so other than Pride, I know you're involved in, is it the same organization that works on all the other events that you do throughout the year? And I don't mean just you, but whoever all's involved. I see a lot of events that happen. So who else, is that part of Greenwood Pride, or who is behind all that?
I'm trying to think of which
Like
event.
the bingo, the drag bingo, the
Oh yeah, that was actually,
brunches.
that's such a sad story. That was actually our friends Chris and Rupel, that owned Lux Event Center here in Greenwood,
Yes.
but they were leasing that spot, and unfortunately, because they have a furniture business as well,
Oh,
and they
okay.
just weren't able to keep both going. Um, so they needed to focus on the business that was making money. And
Oh,
unfortunately,
yes.
yeah, unfortunately, event venues are having a really hard time right now. But
I bet.
so yeah, so the Lux has is no longer open, which is a shame because we used that spot. Bar Louie, we used Bar Louie quite a bit too, and they closed in Greenwood as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so but we've got lots of other organizations that have stepped up. I mean, at Greenwood Pride, you're gonna see over, I think it's close to like over 160 business.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean
It's
it's you.
amazing.
Yeah, and then we have a lot of we have several local venues that have reached out to us and want to do things with us and want to work with us. Greenwood Pride is first and foremost a Pride festival, but
Yeah.
we have our, it's called the Pride Pays It Forward. So
Okay.
we do try to do other events and other things where we can um, take money and put it towards help others. One of the things that we do is we partnered with Trinity Haven and Kickett Johnson
Yes.
County, and we do what we call the moving on out kits. And it's because for Kickett and both Trinity Haven are help people with housing insecurity. And so we go to like IKEA and we pick up things basically people would need for their first kitchen, glasses, silverware, pots and pans, a little toolbox, and all those little things that you don't really want to buy or spend your money on, but you have to have at your first apartment. And we put all those in a big rainbow tote, and then we give them to Trinity Haven and Kick It. And then when they have somebody that graduates from their program and gets their very first apartment or a home, then they get one of those moving on out kits. Uh,
Nice.
but yeah, it's just like we're gonna do a clothing exchange at Greenwood Pride, and we're partnering with Step Up on that one. So yeah, I mean, we want to work with anybody and everybody. I know in the past there has been pride organizations that get kind of competitive with one another. That's not really who we are. We 100% want to bring the community together. Um,
Collaborative. Yeah, it
yes,
sounds very
we're very
collaborative.
yeah. We actually had our very first Pride kickoff. We partnered with Indie Pride and with Centerpoint Brewing and Bowling Warehouse and Burnside Collision Repair. We just did Sapphic Saturday.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah, which was
Wasn't
a
here with that
big
one.
success. Yeah, so we did that for Lesbian Visibility Week, which is exciting because I feel like sometimes the lesbians get the raw end of the deal. Like I feel like sometimes uh we don't do as much celebration like for things like that, like
Right,
Lesbian
right.
Visibility Week. You don't really hear much about it. You do now more days, or now nowadays you hear more about it, which I'm grateful for that, because I love that our community is a lot more inclusive. Because I know when I was
Mhm.
younger, it was like the lesbians had their bars, the gay men had their bars, and neither should the two meet,
Yeah.
And I'm so
When
glad
I
it's
think the only thing that did bring them together was drag. So if you
yes,
think
yeah,
about the 10, for
yeah,
instance,
the
was
tent
basically
tomorrow.
a lesbian bar. Yeah,
Mhm.
but they had drag shows that, some gay men went to, and of course, gay men starred in. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that, and also for people like you making a difference in and bringing things to the front like that, like this celebration that you just mentioned. And you've done so many things over the years. What do you think? Who do you give the most credit for? The person you have become at this point in your life, or who or what do you give credit for that?
Oh gosh, my mom. I would have to say it's my mom. Like she, um, nobody ever prepared. I mean, losing Craig was hard enough, but watching my mom lose my dad, and also losing my father, you
Yeah,
know, was really, really just rough, because I'd never seen my mom that sad before, and there's nothing I could do. I mean, I was with her when she lost, her mom and dad, and um, but I think it's different when it's your spouse. Um, but my mom has,
yeah, oh yeah,
yeah, my mom has always been one of my biggest cheerleaders, and I'm just so grateful for that. She raised me to be a good person and to care about people in the world around me. So yeah, so I would say my mom, and then um, I mean my family too. I'm really blessed when it comes to family. I have a very
oh,
supportive.
that's good. That's
Yeah,
good because, as you know, not everybody does. I'm so
right.
glad you can say that, and that like I said, it's helped you become the person you are today. And I think also a little bit, just to throw this in there, is the religious background. There's a lot of negative parts, as you mentioned, but there's some positives too. Like I
Oh,
think the kindness and the being able to talk to anybody comes partially from sometimes a religious background. I speak from my own experience in that too. But overall, I think what you're doing is wonderful. And I mean, from the community, I just want to thank you because you've done so much. And as you said, with the help of many people, it wasn't just one person, but you're the one I'm talking to today. So I want to thank you for joining me today in this wonderful conversation, but also for all the things you've done because you've got the heart for this. I mean, you can just tell talking to you. And I've
oh,
watched some of your YouTube videos too, which I encourage people to watch your YouTube videos of is it Just John, I think, or
yeah,
what is it? Just
just
John Productions. So
yeah.
look John up on eBay, or no, I said eBay. That's like, I don't know, you might be on eBay too. I meant YouTube. I'm on both, so it sometimes gets confused on
Yeah.
YouTube. So, John, again, thank you so much for joining me today and for talking to people and telling them. And everybody, don't forget, Greenwood Pride is what, June 1st this year, right?
Saturday first. Yeah, from noon until 6 p.m. at Woodman Park. You can find us at Greenwood IN Pride on Facebook, and then greenwoodindianapride.com on the net.